My name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Amie Jacobsen. Based in the Kansas City area, Amie is a highly accomplished, multidisciplinary artist known for her vibrant, large-scale public sculptures. During the program, we're learning why and how Amie's interest in public art sculptures came about. We'll view and discuss some of her stunning and engaging artwork, and in the process come to better understand and appreciate how she goes about creating her unique and extremely captivating installations. Let's start by meeting Amie and then hearing all about her outstanding artistry. Welcome, Amie. So delighted to be able to be here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
A couple of weeks ago, I was quite taken first reading a wonderful article in My Modern Met about your work and eager to hear much more about it, have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest if you'd briefly share perhaps a little bit more about your background, artistic, professional interests, please.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I've actually been an artist for as long as I can remember. By the time I was in middle school, I was telling people I was going to be an artist.
Wow.
So really my whole life. And but I started as a painter, and then I went on to get a degree in illustration, an MFA in illustration, and for many years I taught illustration and illustrated children's books. Uh, and and so sculpture is something I came to very late. But I've been an artist all my life, and that's so my background has always been in the arts, but mostly 2D up until just about 10 years ago.
Yeah. What drew you to sculpture and this incredible metalworking that you're involved with now?
Really, it happened sort of just on a whim. It was a funny thing. I was burned out on teaching. I had been teaching mostly for the e-learning program for the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I was freelance illustrating, but I was a slow illustrator, really slow illustrator. So I wasn't making any money at it. I was it was hard to make a living that way. And I was kind of burned out on teaching. I was teaching online, so I wasn't interacting in person with people day to day, and I just was kind of looking for something. So I started doing work for that. I imagined, I was thinking maybe getting back into some gallery work and doing some paintings, and I had a bunch of construction materials like leftover plywood and stuff from remodeling a house. So
Hmm.
I started to paint on these old pieces of plywood and put nails and screws and things and cut up pieces of wood and put them on. And I thought, well, maybe I could incorporate some metal into these new, kind of works. And they were very bright and colorful. I had been illustrating children's books, so I was doing these really bright, colorful, whimsical things. And and what I was really imagining could have been accomplished with something like soldering. I was just thinking little pieces of metal, but I came across a metal fabrication shop on a TV spot, a local TV spot that was just highlighting a local business. It was a metal fabrication shop that was working with an artist. And so I called him and I said, do you know where I could learn to weld? And this was 10 years ago this year. And
Wow.
I was 40 years old at the time, and I was just it was just kind of on a whim. Where can I learn to weld? And he said, "Oh, I take interns sometimes, and you could come down and help clean my shop, and you could and run errands for me, and I'll teach you some welding." And so and so I thought, well, that might be interesting. And so I gave it a shot. And after about 2 months, I ended up going to work full time for his metal fabrication shop, and I spent the next 2 years, which is about the equivalent of a technical like trade school. And but I learned, of course, in his shop, and I officially I was the in-house designer. So I helped to create, to lay out designs and to create original designs. We got to do some original stuff. We worked with artists, so I got introduced to this whole new world of fabricated sculpture and public art, that I'd never really thought about at all before. And it just sort of clicked for me. And so that's how I ended up moving from a whole different realm to this metalworking realm. And so um, it just sort of came naturally, and I worked for him for 2 years, and he just threw me into the deep end, and I was doing everything from design to fabrication. I had to learn how to design in 3D software, and 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 it just sort of evolved until one day I thought I'd try my hand at my own, um a solo commission, and so I applied for one and I won. And
Wow, what a fabulous happenstance. In addition to the metalworking, how did you realize when and why that public art was a true calling for you?
I mean, I think that public art is, for me, public art is so appealing because it's not just for a few elite, it is for everyone to enjoy. And so being able to create something that is part of an entire community, and it helps to express the values of that community, it helps to it creates community pride. It creates places of landscapes, and if things that are really part of the whole landscape of a community, but also the identity of that community. So it to me, it just has so much meaning, and if it's affects so many people. It's something that is meant for whole communities to enjoy and engage with. And so while I'm always grateful for a private commission, as an artist, it's always an honor for anyone to be interested in your work. I mean, that's an honor for a private commission, for somebody to want to to be engaged with my work that way. But public art is just special. It's just something that's uh to me is really important. You know.
Well, we have several wonderful examples of your work in the public area. One very current. Can you share, as we're going to see some wonderful footage and then images of this current installation at the New York Botanical Gardens in the Bronx, how that collaboration came about?
Well, actually, it was about a year ago now that they first contacted me. And the New York Botanical Garden contacted me out of the blue. I believe that they saw my gateway sculpture, which is a big sunflower, and they were working on a show, an exhibition that is that is rooted in the work of Van Gogh. And so sunflowers were something that were very, that is very well known as Van Gogh's work. He painted a lot of flowers actually, but he painted a lot of sunflowers, and his sunflowers are very famous. And so I think originally they came across my sunflower and reached out to me about creating work for this exhibition this summer. And at first, we talked about doing some big sunflowers, but it just kind of sort of evolved into there's three artists included in this show, and so I think it just sort of evolved into which artists were doing what. And the idea of recreating Van Gogh's flower paintings in a 3D form really was the brainchild of one of the exhibition designers there at the garden. And
Ah,
they sent this idea to me. And I said, oh yeah, I think this would be really neat. And so I designed up some sample pieces and some things that I thought would work. And together we kind of narrowed it down to the paintings that we were going to use, and developed this idea and these designs. And really, I think they turned out really, really spectacular.
oh, for sure. And again, we're very fortunate to have this footage that we're going to get a little tour of the area that we're seeing here. And as we do, feel free to add any commentary when we finish the clip. We have some wonderful still images just to appreciate a little more before we move on. But let's enjoy our tour right now. Here's your first one here.
Uh-huh. The Imperial Fritillaries
Yeah.
and or Crown Imperials, they're often called. It's one of the paintings um, that Van Gogh did. These are oleanders. These are based on his oleanders painting. And this painting is actually owned by the Met in New York City. So I was able to go and visit and see this one in
Oh,
person.
fabulous.
This and also the roses are both in the Met.
Unbelievable.
So the roses are interesting because we made them much more pink than the painting shows. But this is because the paintings originally had more color in them. The reds have in particularly faded. And so the paintings have lost some of their violet and red hues and pink hues over the years. Um, and so I tried to incorporate some of the original colors, even though I don't have them but we know that the roses were, and also the irises were more violet originally, and
Mm.
the roses were more pink originally.
What a gorgeous doesn't even describe that area. And just in just in the footage, I can imagine what it's like in person. Wow.
The backdrops for each of the sculptures. So the sculptures are the flowers, which are made of steel, and the vases, which are made of a engineered wood product that is waterproof, because this is a very damp environment. And then also the pedestals. So the pedestals um, and the vases and the steel flowers are part of the sculpture. The backdrops were created by the team there at the New York Botanical Garden.
Ah,
And they created these frame-like structures where they planted real living plants into. So they're really interesting backdrops, and it was just a neat collaboration.
just gorgeous. And yeah, the collaboration part was fascinating to find out about too. Well, I
Mhm.
know we could hear much more about it, but we're fortunate to have examples of some of your other outstanding work. You mentioned one of your signature pieces with sunflower. Here we have the gateway at Meadowbrook Park. Could you share a little bit about the background? Fascinating story with this piece.
This piece was commissioned by the Johnson County Parks and Recreation Department in Johnson County, Kansas. It's uh, a community outside of Kansas City, a part of the Kansas City metro area. So it's the city itself is Prairie Village, but it was the Johnson County Parks and Rec that actually commissioned this piece. And it sits in a park that had been redeveloped from what was a country club. And they really wanted to highlight the history of the park and the city. So this piece was one, it was based on the sunflower, which is the state flower of Kansas. So that was a nod to that, to it being a Kansas location. And then this piece in particular has panels inside the arch of the sunflower that are illustrated to represent the history of this area, which includes Native American history and immigrant history and Jewish American history. And I actually hired artists from these different communities to help contribute designs to these interior panels so that they would not just talk about their history, but people from that culture would have a say in what was being represented. And so this particular panel at the very bottom shows a symbol, a hand symbol that was a very early American Native American symbolism from kind of just unknown tribes, but just kind of a
Hmm.
general symbol. And then there's a lot of rivers, of course, in the area of Kansas City. So there was a river symbol, and then the bison and the Kansa tribe is represented in this. And the bison, of course, which were so important to the Native Americans, and once roamed these lands prolifically.
Mhm.
Um, and then above that is the picture that the illustration there pictures the railroads being built, and much of those railroads were built by immigrant workers. And so I had a Mexican American artist that helped design that section, and he put in some particular symbolism, marigolds and hummingbirds that had particular meaning to him, that hard to see in there, but if you look up close, they're in there.
Mm.
And then there was the farming, um, the farming history is incorporated in the background. And then the Jewish American history was designed by an artist, by a Jewish American artist here that came from the Kansas City area. She now lives in St. Louis, but she's spent many years in the Kansas City area in this neighborhood. And so she designed a section to represent their history. And it's a particularly important history related to this park, because the
Mm.
park was owned by the Jewish community. It was a country club owned by the Jewish community. And at the time it was developed, the Jewish community was not allowed into other country clubs. They had been banned from other country clubs. So they created, of course, their own a place to be. And that park was once where this country club
Wow.
sat. So it was really an important part of the history of this particular park.
Wonderful background information, and another incredible example of your collaboration with people involved in the site that your work sits. Another aspect of your work is to bring lighting in. Can you briefly share just a few words of the interest, importance of that for you?
Yeah, I think that for me, lighting is just another element. It's another material, really,
Mm.
that you can bring into a piece of artwork. So the light is another form of painting in my mind, and it's just another material that can be brought into a form, and in particularly in public art, it works because you can really use it to create such an, in this case, it really enhanced this effect of this flower, and
Mhm.
it really stands out in the park. And so that's important to me. But also, I think it's just a modern material. It's a very contemporary use of modern technology that
Mm.
we get to integrate into the work. And so I am interested in how technology is changing artwork, and this is my way of using modern technology in a contemporary way.
Mhm. And moving from Missouri to Oklahoma, Bartlettville, we have these wonderful, fun pieces, native color.
This is Bartlesville, Oklahoma, just north of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it's funny that you grab these two pieces, because these, in your questions, you asked which pieces have had the most
Hmm.
like influence on me. And these are definitely the two pieces that I would pick out as my top two pieces in terms of how they've influenced my own life and how I feel like they have if- been part of their communities. And the reason they have been such a big influence on my life is because of how they were received in their communities. The communities that commissioned these two projects were so enthusiastic and so excited, and they just embrace the artwork and the public art that is brought to their communities. The whole the for in Bartlesville, the entire community came out. It was just there was a big event,
Wow.
and they were just so excited. And Meadowbrook Park in Prairie Village, Kansas, was the same way. The
Mm.
Johnson County Parks and Rec team. I've actually done two projects now for Johnson County Parks and Rec, and they are just they're enthusiastic, they're warm, they're very professional, and they just embrace incorporating artwork into their communities. And so they have just made such an impact on my life and how I feel about doing work like this, how important it is to them, and how what an honor it is to be a part of that for me.
Fabulous. So much fun. And like for this, for example, how do you determine or go about the material selection?
Oh, actually, that's a great story because when I moved out of Machine Head into my own space, the first space I rented was a little garage space where I built my first sculpture by myself. And then I moved into a shared space with a glass artist who I'd met while I was, kind of learning. And he was somebody I met through the metal fabrication shop,
Mhm.
which was called Machine Head in Kansas City. His name is Dirk Van Keppel, and he's a glass artist. And I moved into a shared warehouse space with Dirk. And so I was doing metal work, and his beautiful glass work, just in
Mm.
all these sparkling colors, was everywhere around the shop. And so I started looking at it and thinking, oh my gosh, this would be so neat to incorporate glass pieces into my work. And so that is how this has evolved, is through that relationship with Derek. And still to this day, most of my pieces incorporate some glass into the work. Not all of it every time, but a lot of my pieces incorporate glass. And I've really found that because I like to experiment with light and color, this is a way. um, you need transparency. You need transparency. So I also like working with like expanded sheet metal because you can have transparency and create and let the light through. But the glass in particular does that and also brings this incredible sparkling color to this metal work.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Are there materials or methods that you haven't explored yet that you'd like to in the near or sometime near future?
Oh yes. I mean, I think everything's, when you're an artist, everything's an experiment, right? So I'm always trying new things and experimenting. And I'm really interested in a couple of things. One would be integrating some like sensors that allow for motion detection, that would allow light to react the to to
Hmm.
people who are interacting with the piece. So that is something we've been exploring and experimenting with a little bit in my shop here. Some of my assistants have some some interest in that as well. So we're starting to play a little bit with that. We haven't incorporated it into a piece yet, but that's something that's kind of in the works. And then the other thing I really love the idea of is incorporating living plants into a sculpture piece, so that you're really integrating what my original interests, which are flora and fauna
Mhm.
and organic life, and really that integration of the created world, the human created world, and the natural world, which, I mean, we're part of the natural world, and so there really is no separation. But I love the idea of incorporating living plants into pieces, and I've experimented with that a little and I've played with it, but that's something I'd like to explore more of as I move along.
You know, another wonderful example of your interest in collaborating with others is your involvement with the Ferris Wheel Studios. Could you briefly share just a little bit about this initiative?
So Ferris Wheel Studios is what I named my LLC when I started when I opened up my own business um and but as I have developed, and because I am interested in collaborations and I do collaborate with a lot of other artists, I really would like to develop that. So it's something that's kind of an ongoing development to not just be an individual artist, which I am, but also to develop this business model which collaborates with other artists and really focuses on doing creative work, large scale, site specific work that is collaborative with other artists and other mediums, and I like that collaborative process and all the learning and sharing that goes on, which is
Wonderful,
really the
wonderful.
heart of public art, is really that, being able to connect connect with other people and other artists.
For sure, for sure. You know, it's been fascinating hearing your story and journey as an artist. In the minute or so we have left, when you reflect back, now you said a 10th anniversary
Yes.
of getting into the metalworking and sculpturing. What are your thoughts or reactions to that initial answering of an internship to where you are now with your work in the Met, etc.?
Um, oh, I'm sorry. What exactly what was
When
the?
you reflect back from the beginning of when you first ventured in 2015 to where you are now, what are some of your thoughts of your growth and development?
Um, in some ways, it's very serendipitous. It's the things that just sort of happened and evolved. Uh, but also, my thoughts are that I think when we're really being authentic, and I think that was a time in my life where I was really searching to be very authentic in who I am and what I'm interested in, things sort of fall into place when you're really, you're letting go of what you think you should be. And instead, you're just allowing yourself to explore what feels normal and natural to you. And I think that's how things have kind of fallen into place from just falling into an internship and it just sort of worked out that way. And I think that was what just happens from allowing yourself to just be who you are.
Yeah, you know, I admire that trait among you and other, inventors, creators that have had the good fortune to talk to be open to that, versus others, which I would probably put myself in the category, who don't have that openness to just go with something, explore. So definitely admire that, as well as, of course, where you are today as an artist in your work, Amie. And unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program. I want to thank you so much for being here, for sharing your journey and some of your outstanding work. We'll have some contact information in the credits. And just want to end by wishing you continued success with future endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.